Well, this isn't exactly the end of the road for what NHS bosses have called the biggest industrial dispute in its history, but it is a landmark nonetheless. Today, the Department for Health and Social Care agreed a pay deal with unions, and as a result, NHS staff in England, bar dentists, doctors and senior managers, will be receiving a 5% pay rise for this year. Now, the big sticking point was last year's pay award, which was £1,400, so that's about 4% for most staff members, so well below inflation there. The government had initially refused to budge over that, but then they came back to the table with a rise, a one-off payment again of £1,250 to £2,000, and that was today accepted by 10 out of 14 unions. Earlier, I spoke to the largest one, Unison.
Well, it's a sense of frustration that it took us so many months to actually get in the room and work up this deal that's been put to health workers, and we've got a majority, strong majority, in favour to accept and implement. So I'm pleased that we have a clear position on this and that we can move forward. I'm frustrated that it's took us so long to get here.
We won't be sensing any elation from the unions today because they're angry about the way decisions on pay are made. Independent pay review bodies come up with the numbers for government, but the unions say that it's not fit for purpose, and part of the deal is that that system will be reviewed. But as for the 4 unions who rejected the deal, including Unite and the Royal College for Nursing, Steve Barclay today told them that discussion is over, there is no room for manoeuvre.
It's a good day for NHS staff, it's a good day for patients, an opportunity now to get that pay into staff's pay packets next month and for everyone to move forward together.
Amelia, what does this mean for patients?
Well, strikes across the NHS, not just from those affected by today's pay dispute, have led to more than 500,000 appointments being rescheduled in England. Now, Unite says that it will escalate strike action. It's got a mandate. The Royal College of Nursing doesn't, but it's going to reballot. And then, of course, there's the junior doctors who are still in a pay dispute with the government.
Amelia, thanks very much. Well, with me now is Rhian Wheater. She's a nurse ward manager and a strike supervisor. Thanks very much for coming in. You heard Steve Barclay, the health secretary there, say it's done now.
Steve Barclay said that to us back in December. In fact, he said he wouldn't come to talks in December. He wanted us to look at different ways of working, and an already depleted workforce. The Royal College of Nursing, Pat Cullen's already written to the Secretary of State for Health and said that we still remain in dispute with him. We are going out to ballot and we will strike again. I mean,
more than 1 million NHS workers have said they'll accept the 5% pay rise. They want the one-off payment. I mean, you're outliers now, and that's an alarming position to be, isn't it?
It absolutely is, but this has never been about the money. It's never been about the money side. We're fighting for safe staffing. The wards are unsafe, and they continue to be unsafe, and we need a pay rise that is going to bring nurses, bring the talent and skill back into the NHS. 83% of nursing shifts are short of nurses, and that can't carry on.
But 10 out of 14 unions have agreed this now. That makes it a very, very difficult negotiating position for the RCN and the other unions who've said no.
We went, as the Royal College of Nursing, we went out there and we went on strike on our own. We brought the government to the table. Our strikes brought the government to the table to talk about nursing pay.
But why are the others happy with the deal and the RCN don't think it's enough?
The nurses don't think it's enough. It's the members that have said it's not enough, and that boils down to safe staffing. It boils down to the patients not being safe, and that is what we're fighting for. We are fighting for our patients. We're fighting for their right to be safe, for their right to have first-class treatment.
The difficulty is you are in an awkward position, aren't you? You started out with huge public support. The union initially recommended this deal, saying it was the best deal that you were going to get. The government aren't now going to think we better come back with some more when they've got 10 unions agreeing.
And I think that the letter that Pat Cullen's written this afternoon to Steve Barclay does say that this often needs to be built upon. You know, it goes some way to restoring nursing pay. We're asking for a restorative pay rise. We're not asking for anything above anything that we should have had. If you look back to 2010, we're not asking for anything above that. We're asking them to restore nursing pay to where it should be, to bring nurses back.
I mean, are you unhappy about the way your leadership have dealt with this. As I say, they said this is the best deal on the table. The members said no, but it was by a very narrow margin. If this goes to a ballot again, how likely is it that the nurses will vote to strike?
I think they will vote to strike. I think the nurses realise that this is not a good enough deal to keep our patients safe, and that is what every nurse cares about.
A small margin last time, very poor turnout. What happens when nurses, health workers across the board get this one-off payment and the rise in their pay packet? Surely it eats away at the desire to strike.
No, I think we all know that it doesn't go near enough to bring nurses back, to keep patients safe, and that is what will drive nurses back to the strike ballot, back to the picket lines.
And how do you feel about continuing strike action, given that it does have a knock-on effect without doubt on patients?
Devastated. None of us want to be out there, but they've given us no option. Our only option is to be out there on the picket line and striking to get our voices heard. That is the only thing that will bring the government to the table.
Rhian Rita, thanks very much for coming in. Thank you. Well, teachers at schools and sixth form colleges across England were out on picket lines today as members of the National Education Union staged another day of strike action in their long-running dispute over pay. Union leaders accused ministers of refusing to engage, describing it as irresponsible in the extreme. The Education Department said they'd made a fair and reasonable pay offer to teachers, saying children should be in the classrooms where they belong. Jane Dodge reports.
Hiya. Hello, you all right? How are you doing? Get 2 teas, please.
Alan Jones was meant to be mowing his lawn this afternoon. Instead, he's at Big Tops Play Centre in Rotherham, looking after his 9-year-old granddaughter. He's one of thousands of parents and grandparents across the country forced to change their plans because of today's strike by members of the National Education Union, the 6th this year.
I don't agree with strikes per se. I just think it's a shame that they have to take this action and they can't go and negotiate around the, around a negotiating table.
Thousands of schools in England have closed or partially closed because of the strike. The government's offer of a £1,000 one-off payment and an average pay rise of 4.5% next year has been rejected by all 4 teaching unions.
Well, bearing in mind since 2010 we've not really had a pay rise, and it's always been below inflation. So, in real terms, teachers have had a pay cut.
Disruption to children's education seems far from over. In fact, it may well be about to escalate. 3 other unions, including 2 representing head teachers, are asking their members if they want to strike. And all 4 unions have said that they will coordinate any future industrial action.
At Wales High School in Rotherham, hundreds of GCSE and A-level pupils have been in school today. The head has managed to juggle resources to continue to provide lessons.
Science, don't look so happy. All right.
But Pepe Diazio could be joining his staff on the picket line. For the first time in its history, the Association of School and College Leaders is balloting members on strike action.
How will you vote?
I've certainly had to reflect on whether or not I could ever vote to go on strike, 'cause it's not something I've ever done before in my life. But I think I'll be voting in favour of strike action for the autumn term, yes.
Why now?
Our budgets were already stretched. We have formally unfunded pay increases for staff, resources are at a real high, food prices are high, and as a result, our finances cannot be stretched any further.
The government has described its pay offer as fair and reasonable and says there are no plans to meet the unions. So it's a stalemate just days before these pupils are due to sit their first A-levels.
I get why they want to strike, but it's just not ideal time with our exams.
Our year's being impacted like the most, and I feel these strikes have kind of added more fuel to the fire.
And that fire is far from out. There are 3 more strikes before the end of the summer term.